whatever we use or do in our day-to-day life, Chinese products or China has been integral part of it. China was seen in international news for good or bad from almost half a decade. In early 1950s, Chinese population exploded from respectable 500 million to 1.4 billion. That is more than North America, Europe and Australia put together. Its consistent economic growth made them one of the world superpowers with enough military might to claim strategically important South China Sea and have enough influence to begin one of the most ambitious projects in the history, which is 1 trillion One Belt One Road initiative, building ports, pipelines and roadways spanning across 65 countries. But the road to the present was definitely not smooth. Chinese feared Malthusian theory, which states that food production will not be able to keep up with growth in the human population, resulting in disease, famine, war, and calamity. China's response to their overpopulation was one child policy in 1975, which limited ethnic Chinese families to a single child. To enforce the law, women were forcefully sterilized and fined for having too many children. The problem is, it worked. Chinese women fertility rate fell from 6.5 TFR to 1.6 TFR, well below 2.1 TFR to maintain its massive size. In other words, there were not enough children. In few short years, China will begin to shrink. China repealed its one-child policy in 2015, but it won't make a significant difference. The timing of this problem is even bad for China. The story of China in 21st century is its GDP, its military power, its demography, and the rule of Xi Jinping. We need to dig deeper to understand this crisis. Most countries wouldn't understand its individual citizens, but it understands its citizens in groups. For example, toddlers are low spenders. 45 to 55 years old are high savers. Seniors who are above 55 years invest in stocks and bonds. No country has found a way to manufacture an 18-year-old, not even China. A child who was born has to be raised for at least 18 years or until he becomes an asset to his country instead of a liability. 18 to 45 age group are spenders. As they spend more, consumer spenders are the biggest contributors to country's economic growth. 45 to 65 age group are earners. As they pay taxes, they are considered as the government's best friends. An ideal population pyramid for any developed nation is more births and less deaths. But in China, it has been less deaths and less births, but bulge in 1865 years group. It is no wonder why China is seeing economic growth, because they have high earners and high spenders. Remember, this huge group of workers soon and suddenly retire and depend on government pensions. A single child at this point have to take care of his parents and his 4 grandparents if he is lucky enough to get married. Speaking of marriage, one-child policy and cultural gender preference has created a massive gender imbalance. As a result, likely by 2030, one-fourth of the Chinese men in their late 30s will never get married. It causes social anxiety in young men. China knows this problem, but it is fighting an inevitable transition. While China fighting this demographic problem, let's look into the Indian scenario. Indian population has a larger proportion of children, teenagers and young adults. In other words, in age group of 25 to 65, India currently has 650 million, while China has 830 million. This shouldn't be a wonder why China's GDP is higher than India's GDP. But in 2040, India's 25 to 65 age group will be 900 million compared to China's 730 million. What does this statistic say? It says that there will be a window open for a country like India to become an economic superpower. India need to capitalize and take this opportunity, that is from 2020 to 2040. It is to understand that southern Indian states along with Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, West Bengal and Maharashtra have responded well to the Indian government's call of having 1 or 2 children, which now have fertility rates well below the replacement rates. This has immensely helped India to be in a commanding position where we are in terms of demographic dividend. Having people in working age is not enough. We need to build a working infrastructure and increase labor force and productivity to become an economic superpower. India needs to invest more in human capital. Education system needs to ramp up. Investments in health and sanitation needs to go up, and more public-private partnership models need to be adopted. We all understand that currently we are facing a crisis of a century, but we should also understand that success comes from a crisis and there is no best time to bounce back than now. Thank you.